Well, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey, everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I'm back. Everybody says I'm always bullish. You know, the people who actually follow me for a while, you know that that's not entirely true. I just am bullish on a bull market, and it's just been very, very bullish for the last, really the last 2 years. It's been a bull market, right? So why am I bearish at a bull market, even during a back test of some pretty important support level, right? So this is Bitcoin. If I just kind of put up Bitcoin here, if I just kind of zoom in here, you can see what Bitcoin is really trying to do is trying to touch the bull market support band right there, right? That's what Bitcoin is trying to do. And right now, the top of our support band is around 92,000. The bottom of our support bands around 90,000. Let's just put it that way. Can it wick underneath below and kind of touch it before it goes higher? It's entirely possible. If you look at the previous cycles, especially the most notable cycle was really all the way back here in 2015 to 2017. You can see that during the entire bull cycle, it just tagged the bull market support band on the way up, right? It literally is just tags it, and then just push it all the way up here until it broke down underneath the bull support band. And that's when the bull market was over, right? That was that particular bull cycle. Now, the bull cycle after that, which is the one that is more recent, is from 2020 all the way to 2021. You can see this bull market, it really just tagged the bull support band just once. It just went up very, very fast in a very unhealthy way and didn't even touch the bull support band here for about 6 months in a row, right? When it broke down, it really broke down. Was able to reclaim it, backtest it, and push up and make another slight higher high. But then when it broke down underneath of it, it just became the bear market resistance band up until this cycle. Up until we were able to bounce off of that around 20,000 zone over there. And we've had a little bit of anomaly here at this cycle. This is not a usual Bitcoin cycle. This is very, very strange, actually. We went sideways over here for about 8 or 9 months. We went sideways over here for about 9 or 10 months. This is very unusual. I just showed you the previous behavior of Bitcoin cycles. It didn't really behave like this. So this is a little bit of an unusual look in terms of what Bitcoin does. But it did bounce from here when our support band, just decided to break down underneath of it for a couple months, broke back above, got really close to it, and just broke out. Touch it, looks like we were going to go higher. Nope, broke down underneath of it for another few months, and then just ended up breaking above. And then right now, where are we at right now? We're back testing it right now again, right? Again, the top of this is about 92,000. The bottom of that is around like 90,000, somewhere around there. I think we're at the zone where it needed to be. And we needed to touch it before you even really had a chance to kind of go higher at this point, because that's what this whole sideways over here is telling me. If you think that this is like a double top formation, I don't know. I mean, all I know is it's just been a range. Top of the range around 106, 108, bottom of the range around like 90,000. So I think it's at the bottom of the range. It's hitting a bull support band with a very, very positive sloping 20-week moving average. Got a high chance of breaking out of it. We'll see. If it broke down underneath of it, we can spend another, a couple months over here, maybe a few months underneath of it, maybe a little bit more brutalized price action down here above or below. We'll see, right? But we're at support right here. This downtrend over here is not on very, very good volume, so we'll see whether or not we're going to end up just bouncing off from here and go from there. That's kind of what I'm seeing now. When talking about the greater scheme of things, I want to talk about in two different settings here. The first setting is you have an indicator down here below. This is the M2 Global Liquidity Index. And then the one that's below is called the On Balance Volume, or OBV. There are a couple of things here to kind of pay attention to. One is I think that we're kind of close to where we are right now as this spot over here. There are a couple of reasons as to why I say that. On Balance Volume is really the summation of different volumes. And it kind of basically just tell you whether or not there's any market inefficiency, if you will. Price end up going up, and if OBV end up going down, or price end up going down and OBV end up going up, usually you have like some divergence here that is going to end up pushing things, to a certain direction. The other thing too, sometimes you can also actually just chart OBV. Very interestingly, if you just look at this previous cycle top over here around 2017. And you look at this whole bear market, you can see how it's just been extremely brutal, where it just went sideways for about 2.5 years, doing absolutely nothing, right? During the entire time on balance volume, interestingly, actually looked like you've got a little bit of a trend line over there, right? And you can see that as soon as it breaks this trend line, that's when that big giant parabolic move was happening, right? As soon as it broke that trend line over here, even a little bit before that, it happened a little bit before that, right there at that spot. And whenever you have a breakout here on balance volume, you really have a big explosive move on the way up for Bitcoin, right? What about this current cycle right here? Are we having any kind of trend line? We actually do. If anything, it actually looks like it's just a horizontal line. It's not even a trend line. It just looks like a big horizontal line right there. And you can see that the unbalanced volume has been unchanged over these two previous tops over here. And it went down, and then right now we finally get to the unbalanced volume resistance over here. And when you get to the unbalanced volume resistance, if we end up breaking out from here, and if coincidentally, if this ends up being the Bollinger Support Band touch before we make the big giant parabolic move, I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm just saying that at least, I think we're at least bounced from here. But that's what happened during this cycle, right? If we end up just kind of bounce off of that for Bollinger Support Band, if we end up bouncing off of this breakthrough here on the unbalanced volume, and on top of that, if it ends up happening on when global liquidity is just been going up for a while, and it continues to go up, I think it could end up becoming a very, very powerful move up above, right? That's kind of what I'm seeing over here. Same thing, if we're breaking above the unbalanced volume, and if we're finding support here at Bollinger Support Band, and if the global liquidity is on the way up, then I think there is a potential for us to have a next leg up. Now, I don't know whether or not it's going to be a parabolic move up, but I just think that right now it's a pretty interesting juncture here. The other thing also I've been looking at for a very long time, and I've been talking about this previously too, was the whole notion that global liquidity has been breaking out. And right now we're at a juncture where we're just basically trying to find support and back test it right here during this period of time, whenever you have the unbalanced volume trend line right there that I wanted to break. During about most of the time, you have the global liquidity just trying to basically break above the zone, finally able to break above, back test it, and then that's when up we go, right? Here, I think we're at a very, very similar juncture because I think that the global liquidity, you can see how it's been trying to break above this horizontal zone over here for a very, very long time, right? We're able to finally break above that right here, which resulted in a big lick up over here, but we're back testing it right now. So maybe we're getting close to, with a back test around support band, we're getting close to kind of shooting up from here. I think it's possible. I think it's possible that the bull market might be beginning right around where we're at right now. When everybody's like super bearish, everybody thinks that Bitcoin's going to have to drop back down here to like 80,000 or whatever. I just don't know. I just don't know whether or not that's going to happen. That's also part of the reason why I've been just kind of averaging up, if you will, for a lot of the assets that I own relates to crypto. That's also part of the reason why I've been kind of loading up on Coinbase, why I've been actually still chasing the miners, even though the miners look absolutely horrible right now. There's no doubt the miners look absolutely horrible right now. The reason why is because I see something potentially beautiful that's building up. I don't know whether or not it's going to work out or not. I just think that it's building up. So we'll see whether or not this turns out to be the case or not. Nobody else really have a crystal ball here, so I'm just going to basically go with what I see here. Now, if you're talking about the whole crypto market in general, I think it's very, very interesting in terms of what the rest of it has been doing. I need to kind of turn off the Bollinger Support Band here to kind of show you what I'm seeing here. I mean, on the daily, it's been trying to touch back over here to this horizontal zone over here. It looks like it wants to kind of have like that Cantonese bounce and kind of bounce through that. The only issue is that the downtrend volume here is just not that great. So I'm not sure whether or not this is really like a committal move to try and break down. Can it break down further and kind of grab liquidity down below? It could, but does it have to absolutely go down to like 80,000? I'm just not so certain about that. Now, judging by how everything else looks here, this is Bitcoin dominance. If it's high, that means Bitcoin outperforms altcoins. And right now, even though Bitcoin dropped, you can see Bitcoin dominance has kind of make a high over here. That means altcoins are truly suffering. You actually get a little bit of morning star to kind of look to it, which is unfortunate. But the entire thing up here, this is the weekly chart for Bitcoin dominance. The entire thing up here is still happening on a bearish divergence, right? So I think this whole top right here is a little bit exhaustive top. I actually do think that if anything, I would not be surprised if altcoins just reversing it here in a hurry. If this turns out to be exhaustive top, which I think it is, right? So that's thing number one. Thing number two is if you look at the Bitcoin dominance here on the daily, you're seeing the same thing, how it's trying to make a high here, but it's just not really able to make that much of a high. It's on bearish divergence over here too, whereas RSI is kind of looking very much exhausted. The entire time just trying to touch up a Bollinger Band here. I mean, granted, it's expanding, doesn't mean Bitcoin dominance is just going to continue to just keep running up from here. Maybe, hard for me to say for sure, but I just think that it's hitting a little bit of exhaustion here. It's trying to get to resistance levels here above. It's trying to continue to be bullish, but I just don't know whether or not it has enough energy to really try to continue to push up a lot higher. Meanwhile, you have Ethereum here. When you're talking about, you look at the weekly chart here, it is kind of breaking underneath this ascending triangle wedge over here. It's ascending triangle generally lean bullish. Ascending triangle generally means that price is going to end up breaking above and go higher. And because this ascending triangle is over here has been building up for about 4 years, I think it's going to be pretty powerful whenever it breaks about. Sometimes you have some deviation here, sometimes you have some deviation here. That doesn't really bother me. It touches enough point. I think this ascending triangle here is still valid, even though currently price is kind of underneath of that here a little bit, right? But it could just be a wick. We'll see. The whole thing about Ethereum too, if you are looking at different indicators, you look at the Ichimoku cloud here on a weekly, you can see it's underneath of that, right? Which is why we got rejected here and we end up just kind of plummeted all the way down here, which is unfortunate that had to work out that way. But if you look at 2 week, that tells you a little bit of a different story. It looks like we're just kind of breaking back down into the 2 Ichimoku cloud and touching the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud over here. So far, we're still at support. Look at a monthly. We're also getting really close to the top of the monthly Ichimoku cloud over here. So got pretty confluent zone of support over here. If anything, these three are still inside candle. This big giant green candle here in November. So I think that we are still relatively doing okay here with Ethereum. With Ethereum dominance, it's just been absolutely plummeting all the way down, which is unfortunate. But whenever things just getting that parabolic down here, at some point, it's just gonna be down so much that it just can't go that much further anymore. Granted, I would have been a lot happier if I would have seen some kind of bullish divergence for me to think that Ethereum dominance is definitely bottom and that it's gonna go up from here. But just RSI is just absolutely oversold over here. So I don't know. I don't know what any of this really means. You see how the big giant parabolic move down over here with Ethereum dominance. Next thing you know, you just end up reversing all the way up, parabolic move all the way up during the bull cycle, right? If this is the Bitcoin bull market where it makes the parabolic move up, and there's a potential, since it's kind of bouncing on the support band right now, then maybe this is it for Ethereum. Maybe this is going to big bounce. It's going to end up reversing and just going to keep going up from here. Who knows? Maybe I'm delusional. Who knows, right? But I just see a lot of things that just kind of make me wonder whether or not Bitcoin's actually not looking bad right now, right? Whether or not Bitcoin's actually just kind of falling on balance volume, falling global liquidity, and it's just doing what it's supposed to be doing on this cycle, is just scaring everybody else while it's figuring out its own thing, right? Because it's still backtesting for our support band right now as we speak. With that said, let's look at how brutalized a lot of the Bitcoin proxies, if you will, have been, right? What happened with MicroStrategy today? MicroStrategy finally came back and closed the gap. MicroStrategy finally came back and closed the gap today. That has been hanging out here for quite some time, right? The daily gap has been closed. The entire downtrend over here is on low volume, right? On declining volume, right? Whereas the entire uptrend over here is on increasing volume. This still looks like consolidation. This still looks like reaccumulation. I think this still looks like it's just wanting to come back down and just fill the gap here on the daily as well as on the weekly. That gap is closed. What is happening next with the stock? I think that it doesn't matter what I think. I think that it came back down and closed the gap after it got rejected here, the 1.618 here, pushed up in a hurry here in November, and just ended up going down on declining volume here for about 3 months. It doesn't matter what I think in terms of how low it's going to go. I think this is going to be a pretty good risk-reward ratio if you buy it on declining volume on the way down. because this looks like a cool off. Look at what happened last time if you end up buying here at the bottom of this range over here on declining volume, right when it's like, in low volume. I think you've done pretty well for yourself. Okay. So that's kind of where I think we're at right now. Now, the MicroStrategy chart is a derivative of Bitcoin, so it's going to be a little bit more impulsive than Bitcoin. It's been riding up on the bottom support band here. Sometimes it breaks down underneath here for a few weeks, but that doesn't really seem to bother MicroStrategy. Here, what we're doing right now, we're breaking down underneath of that right now. Are we going to end up just keep plundering from here and just go down a lot lower? Maybe. A lot of people think that this bull cycle is over now because it's just been going down like this for about 3 or 4 months. But when it closed the gap, generally that's a pretty good support level at the gap. That's just in general, that's just kind of like how it's supposed to be a pretty decent level right there in the gap. If I look at another chart here that has my heart absolutely breaking is Coinbase, right? What is Coinbase doing? It also seemed to be breaking underneath the bottom support band here. Has it done that before? Yes, it's done that over and over again. Here, here, here. Does that mean that the bull market is over? Maybe, but probably not, because I was just showing you about what Bitcoin was doing, right? This move up here was on bearish divergence, and it just simply has to digest right now. I think RSI's cool down enough as we speak, and I do see enough of these kind of hidden bullish divergence here. I think RSI is kind of cool down enough for this to be a pretty decent risk-reward ratio. The entire downtrend over here, you did end up picking up a little bit of volume over here about 3 weeks ago, but so far the downtrend here is still on a little bit of declining volume, right? Uptrend on increasing volume, downtrend on declining volume. Yeah, so the lower it goes, I think the better risk-reward ratio is going to be. It did kind of came back down here to the zone over here. Right? Initially, you would think, hey, it's kind of holding the zone up here. Nope, it decided to go back down here to test the zone over here. So be it. If that's what you're going to do, so be it. Now, if you're also looking at the volume shelf over here, you are kind of at like a peak volume shelf level over here, right? If you're also looking at the Gann arc over here, which I've drawn, I'm going to turn off the volume, I'm going to turn off the volume shelf over here. You look at the Gann arc over here, I think that we are still getting close to support now. We can now breaking down underneath that and go to 200. I'm prepared for that possibility, but we're kind of still testing support right now. Sometimes you can break underneath these levels here a little bit, and that wouldn't bother me, right? But I think if anything, we're kind of broken through this resistance here on huge volume, and we're just basically doing a back test here on the arc, right? So as far as I'm concerned, I think that Coinbase is still a pretty decent risk-reward ratio. It did break underneath of my monthly Tenkan, the blue line here, which is unfortunate. Now, can it go down to like the 190s and back test the Kijun here again? Certainly can. It did that over here, right? Why wouldn't it be possible for it to do that? But does it have to do that? Not necessarily. February is almost over, and this bull flag over here is still on relatively declining volume. So there's not really any reason to still believe that this is just going to be like the end of the bull market, because it is still breaking level after level after level. It is still looking like it wants to kind of staircase on the way up. But we simply just at a juncture, because we're experiencing some bearish divergence over here, I think we just need to kind of figure things out over here, cool down here on decline volume, and then figure out from there. The top of the weekly Ichimoku cloud over here is around 212. So I've been adding to CoinL, which is the 2x Coinbase here, during the entire downtrend over here. But because we're getting closer to the cloud, I'm actually going to hold off. I'm actually going to see whether or not I can add some over here. It ends up going down to the top of the cloud, which is 212. We'll see. It's getting pretty close. You might as well just touch it and just get moving, right? Who knows? It's just a hint, just a hunch, right? If you're looking at the Subiichi, it can go a little bit lower down to 200. I think that's entirely a possibility, but I actually like the overall. Actually, like the Ichimoku cloud better as a support level. So we'll see whether or not Coinbase end up doing that. It depends on ultimately what Bitcoin altcoins decide to do. And I think that we're getting pretty close. I could be completely wrong. I can be a complete fool, but I think we're getting pretty close. Looking at the rest of the Bitcoin proxies, if you will, which they really haven't really been behaving like proxies, because they've just been absolutely plummeted over the last couple of years, last whole year over here. if you're looking at the ascending triangle, not ascending triangle, you look at the symmetric triangle here that I drawn for CleanSpark, you broke it underneath of it right now, right? Is that cause for concern? Yeah, somewhat. You can see how it's broken underneath of that. Not on high volume, it's just kind of broken underneath of that just a little bit here. But you can also have a little bit of deviation here and there, so I don't really know what to kind of make out of it quite just yet. I still think that the IWM, I still think that Bitcoin are in a very, very brutal correction, and the sentiment is horrible. And when the sentiment is horrible, these miners are just not going to do very well. Sentiment can shift in a hurry, but it just really hasn't been doing that for the entire year. It's unfortunate, right? Even though Bitcoin's doing really well, you still have CleanSpark really just been not doing very well at all. To put that into perspective, though, I think it's important to put it in perspective, because when CleanSpark went from $1.70 all the way to like $25, it made a huge like 13, 14, 15x during the year of 2023 to early 2024, right? So with CleanSpark making a 13x to 15x, Bitcoin only made about like a 4x, because Bitcoin went from like 15,000 all the way to maybe like 70,000, 75,000, somewhere around there. So it only really made like maybe 5x, right? Whereas CleanSpark made like a 15x. It's simply just a little bit too far ahead of itself. So if Bitcoin went from like 75,000 and then went all the way up to where we're at right now, around like 90,000 or so. Yeah, CleanSpark just been plummeted down like 3 times. I think it's just mostly just kind of correcting this whole big giant move right there. It is what it is. I don't have much else to add to that. I think it is what it is. We're at close to the bottom of this volume shelf level over here. If we break down, it can break down a lot further, but it doesn't have to, because it looks like we broke down over here, but really that was a little bit of a false breakdown. We just ended up making another like small like up, right? So we'll see whether or not that turns out to be the case, but right now we're at the bottom of this volume shelf over here. Mara, what is Mara doing? Range bound, right? It's on the upper part of the range here, lower part of the range over here. This could still be a little bit of a bullish rectangle pattern, although it's been really, really, really brutally bullish. It's just been shaking everybody out. I don't know for sure, if I just look at this chart in isolation, whether or not it's going to turn bullish. I mean, yeah, it's cute to have a bullish rectangle pattern here, but just looking at the chart, I actually don't know whether or not it's going to turn bullish, because it's been going sideways for so long. It really broke down underneath a lot of my support levels, including the Ichimoku, including a lot of these like different moving averages here. It just seemed like it was just finding no support here at all, right? Initially, it looks like it was just going to kind of break back about, back test some things, and just kind of break back about. Decided not to do that. Coming back to the bottom of the range, break down underneath the 0.5. What does it want to do, right? What does it want to do on low volume? What does it want to do on this big giant lick down here on low volume? I do not know. All I know is price going up, increasing volume, price going down, declining volume. So I know that the lower it gets, the greater risk reward ratio is going to be, because it just doesn't seem like it's like a high volume breakdown. Same thing as I was mentioning with CleanSpark, right? With Mara, it went from $3 all the way up to about 33, 34. So it went at 11x when Bitcoin just went up like 5x. And it's simply just going down over here sideways for the entire freaking year. What am I going to do when I hold Mara, when it's at the bottom of the range, when it's happening on declining volume? What do? I buy. So I end up rebalancing some additional funds here, and I end up buying more Mara. Could that be a horrible decision? You bet your butt it absolutely can be a horrible decision. But again, I'm not trying to time it perfect. I just want to be directionally right. And if I'm directionally right about Bitcoin, because of what I was just kind of showing you, if I was directionally right about what I think is happening with Bitcoin, if the entire thing is just global liquidity breaking out and back testing, it looks like it wants to go higher. If the entire thing is happening is that it just simply wants to break above the on balance volume, then so be it. Then so be it. I'm just gonna keep on following it. And I think that there's a good chance that the proxies that I'm in would still work out at the end whenever the sentiment shifts, because it's been absolutely horrible sentiment here for the entire year. Anyway, you don't have to listen to me at all. The fact that you already listened to me for like the last half an hour or so is already incredible enough. And you're still here. You're still listening to a potential bullish thesis, which kudos to you. I hope it works out. If it doesn't, then at least I made some money from Palantir and Tesla. And I made some money from SoFi. And this is the end of global liquidity. If this is like a double top global liquidity and it just plummet from there on out because of some crazy inflation or something like that, then so be it. But what I'm seeing here is that global liquidity just do a back test and wants to go higher. And what I'm seeing here is that the unbalanced volume looks like it's just on the brink of breaking out of here. So anyway, thanks so much for listening to my nonsense, and hope you guys have a wonderful Monday evening despite of the Bitcoin price action and altcoin price action. I hope you all enjoy the night as much as possible. Have a good one. Bye.